It's April 9th, and we have about 10 games left in the Vancouver Canucks season, and it's gotten to a point where Oliver Ekman-Larsson is now being given first-line power play time over Quinn Hughes, who is back in the lineup today against San Jose. And honestly, based off of how OEL has played in Hughes' absence, I'm totally a big fan of this move. So, I know OEL has had his fair share of criticisms over the past few years. Not even just this season, but the past few years, ever since he started making the astronomical amount of money that he has been making. I know there's some contention due to the entire reasoning on why the Canucks even have OEL in the first place, because Jim Benning went out there and tried to sacrifice one more year of bad contracts in order to make the playoffs one more time by getting a slightly better player who is making an extraordinarily high amount of money too, albeit until 2027, unlike the Beagles, the Russells, and Ericssons, who are all expiring at the end of this season instead. Jim Benning went ultimate short-term, screw the future, we need to make the playoffs right now by making this trade. And even Connor Garland, he's been good, but there still isn't enough meat on the bone, I think, to really make it so that Dylan Guenther, Jay Beagle, etc. trade was worth it for Vancouver in the long term. But either way, Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been here, and for the most part, he has been a pretty good player. Has he been $7.26 million good? No, absolutely not, but he has been a more reliable option on this blue line than probably the majority of other players that have suited up for this team in the past calendar year. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, especially under Travis Green, was a lot more of a shutdown, okay, he's got to play with Tyler Myers, therefore he's on the shutdown pairing type of guy, and for the most part, he was pretty good at what he did. He was good at making reads in the defensive zone, he could be physical once in a while on the boards, and he made a pretty good outlet pass to get the puck out of dangerous areas. It was almost like Alex Edler 2.0, and it was made even better by the fact that he was wearing Edler's number 23, and they're both Swedish. However, Alex Edler was never making $7.2 million against the Vancouver Canucks cap every year. Oliver Ekman-Larsson was, because he was formerly touted as a prime-time #1 D-man on Arizona, where he was their captain and where he got that huge contract in the first place. And that was kind of the tail of the tape for the majority of the year, especially when Travis Green was in his heyday making this team dump and chase pucks and lose games over and over again. Give it a few months, though, and all of a sudden Oliver Ekman-Larsson is in a position where in his past 10 games played, he has had 7 points. In his past 5 games played, he has had 5 points. And on the year, he has himself a total of 24 points in 69 games played, on pace for 28 points in 79 games. Let's just round that up to 30 points. He's got a 30-point season on his hands right here. And honestly, that's not a great number, especially for a guy making the amount of money that he is. It's just, when you isolate what he has done in certain situations, it gets a lot better from there. And the same ingredients that make this conversation happen are the same ingredients as to why we're going to be seeing what we're going to be seeing today against San Jose. Let's take a look at the lines that were tweeted out by Brendan Batchelor earlier today. The Canucks have themselves morning skate lines of Petey, Miller, Garland, Podkolzin, Horvat, Chason, Dries, Lamico, Lockwood, Batan, Richardson, and Hunt, OEL, Myers, Hughes, Shen, and Dermott, and Burrows. You have yourselves extras, Brady Keeper, as well as Jason Dickinson. Of course, there is a little bit of a different conversation we can have. Oh, Dickinson wasn't playing on a line. Bruce Boudreau apparently said that Dickinson will be playing in the regular lineup, and so we might see him slot into one of the spots filled up by Hunt, or maybe Dries, maybe have Hunt as another player extra to that. I don't really know. But either way, the one that I wanted to talk about here was the power play, because the Canucks were practicing this morning with a power play unit of Chason, Miller, Horvat, Pettersson, and OEL. Quinn Hughes, who is back in the lineup, has been playing on the second unit. And this is really interesting because now that Hughes is back, you might assume, okay, we got Hughes back, he's our #1 power play quarterback, let's get OEL to the second unit and have Hughes on the first unit. Nuh-uh, that's not what they're going out there and doing. OEL adds a different dynamic to the power play, and we discussed this in the video talking about the Canucks and the Coyotes the other day too, but Oliver Ekman-Larsson is just such a different beast when it comes to manning the top of the umbrella, being the guy right down the middle, and just being that anchor. Quinn Hughes, as we talked about, he plays really good east-west hockey. His pivoting is phenomenal. He's able to go left, right, on a dime, and he's usually every second pass on the power play because of it. Hughes to Miller, back to Hughes, over to Petey, back to Hughes, over to Miller, back to Hughes. You've seen this pattern over and over again because Quinn Hughes is so good at walking the line and playing alongside that blue line. OEL isn't necessarily like that. He's not as agile as Quinn. He's not as pivoty as Quinn. He doesn't take every second pass like Quinn, and he doesn't produce the same amount of assists like Quinn. What OEL does instead that is so effective is he gets the puck to the net and he makes it count. Even at the beginning of the season, we were talking all about Oliver Ekman-Larsson and his ability to throw the puck towards the goal and actually make it count. Either have a shot that hits the net, setting up a rebound for the guy in front, or have a shot that gets tipped on and sets up a rebound from there, or goes in entirely. For Quinn Hughes, he does not have that same shooting ability that OEL does right now. Hughes, if you take a look at the shots that he takes, they usually go either wide, because Quinn Hughes likes to try to force a top shelf. It doesn't really work all the time. When it does go in, hey, it looks really nice. I remember a few goals from the playoffs where Quinn Hughes was able to snipe it top corner, and there was the goal he scored in overtime against the Islanders a few years ago where he whipped it on goal and it went top corner again. Hughes likes to go for those big money shots. It's just, he doesn't hit the net all the time. OEL hits the net with a lot more frequency, and he throws pucks towards the goal that are a lot more tippable for his guys in front. You saw Chason with the tip, you saw the rebounds that it was setting up off of the pads of Harry Sateri. OEL, when you give him number one power play time, is honestly pretty effective, and this is what Jeff Patterson said about it too. Quinn Hughes has missed 5 games total on the season, and OEL has 7 points in those games. 0 points versus Buffalo, 3 assists versus the Arizona Coyotes, a goal versus the Islanders, an assist versus Toronto, and 2 assists versus the Vegas Golden Knights. OEL has been pretty effective in the absence of Quinn Hughes, and you start to see what exactly made him the number one power play quarterback in Arizona when there is no Quinn Hughes taking up that number one spot here on the Vancouver side of things. It's just unfortunate because the Vancouver Canucks have themselves a team that is so reliant on that top unit that you never really see the second unit go out there first and foremost and actually progress to the point where they can score points. I mean, this has been a problem for the Canucks for a few years now, where it's only really that number one power play unit that does damage, and it's gotten even worse ever since Bruce Boudreau's come along with his reputation of only really playing the top guys in key situations. This was a thing he exhibited in Anaheim. This was a thing he exhibited in Washington, where he would rely so much on Perry and Getzlaf and Ovi and Backstrom, and I believe it was Mike Green who was Bruce Boudreau's defensive anchor in Washington. This was a thing that he did a lot of, and Vancouver, I mean, they already had themselves that identity of doing that where they wouldn't really do much with the second power play unit. It would only be the first that would actually get stuff done. And so now you have a second power play unit that includes guys like Tanner Pearson, like Connor Garland, like Vasily Podkolzin that doesn't really accomplish much. And OEL has just gotten the short end of the stick due to circumstance being in this position. Now, there was that sequence in time where the Canucks on the first power play had 2 defensemen. They had Hughes and OEL. But Hughes is so dominating in the offensive zone with the puck on his stick that you still saw more of that same pattern repeat itself. Hughes to OEL, back to Hughes over to Millard, back to Hughes to OEL, back to Hughes. You saw that pattern repeat itself over and over again with little flexibility. And I kind of wonder, you know, the Canucks, they're playing the Sharks tonight. They have themselves a first power play unit that includes Chason and Ekman-Larsson, but the reason they have it like that is because it's been successful. And so, do you really want to say that the Canucks are going to go with that same strategy of only having the top guys out there on the power play? One might think, because Quinn Hughes is on Unit 2, you're kind of wasting your power play if you don't at least have Hughes on there for a minute, right? So who knows if the second unit is actually going to get some more time. Maybe they start a power play, who really knows? But Either way, you could talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about Oliver Ekman-Larsson and his overall season this year. Do I believe he's still a Vancouver Canuck for 2022-2023? I have no idea, but that's not up to me. I'll just wait for Patrick Allvin to go out there and try to unload whatever contracts it is he feels necessary. If OEL just happens to be one of those, then that's a conversation for another day. But talk to me all your thoughts about Ekman-Larsson in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Trolls 99, and bye.